All right, we are live. How's it going, guys? My name is Thomas Brush, and I make indie games for a living, and so does my buddy here, Gavin. Gavin, be sure or let us know about your game and let us know who you are. I'm going to pull up your game on screen so the audience can see it.
Sure, sure. So I am Gavin. I'm a solo developer. I run Two-Star Games, and I'm working on a game called Choo-Choo Charles. It's a game where there's an evil spider train named Charles. You navigate an island in an old train, upgraded over time, and then you use that train to fight and hopefully kill the evil spider train named Charles. So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
This game, by the way, guys, is I've seen it. Most of you have probably seen this game at some point on social media, just clips of it. And before we started the podcast, I wasn't quite sure who Gavin was, and then I pulled up his YouTube channel. He's killing it. Like his views are through the roof. We're going to talk all about not only his game and how he's making this. I'm assuming you're making this solo, dude?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be hiring on some help
Yeah.
later on for, translations, QA testing, all that kind of stuff. But
of
primarily
course.
solo, yeah.
It's insane. I mean, it's like you're one of those podcast guests, frankly, that I get nervous around because I'm like, this guy is killing it with not only the game. I mean, I'm looking at it right now and I'm just pissed at how good it looks, but also your YouTube channel is just blowing up. So we're going to talk about all of this strategy as it relates to running a game studio and, more importantly, doing it full time. You're a full-time game developer and you're doing this solo, which is nuts. So we're going to talk about all the strategies here and how you're doing this, because I have a feeling that you have some strategies that could probably help my audience. Before we do that, I'm going to run an intro really quick, Gavin, and I'll see you on the other side. By the way, guys, feel free to download my free 2D game kit below. It's totally free. It's my treat to you. I used this exact 2D game kit to make a game for PewDiePie in 14 days, and then I got to play it in front of his subscribers, which was really awesome. So download that. Use it however you want. It's my treat to you. Yeah. Okay. There's so many freaking questions I have, and it's like my brain is kind of like sparking because there's so many things I want to learn from you. And I'm hoping that we can chat after this conversation, because you're doing everything right. So give us, I don't really want to, I'd love for you to sort of share with us what you consider successful, that is currently successful right now. Like, how's your YouTube channel doing? How are your views? How are your wish lists? Just give us a quick breakdown, kind of brag, I guess. Let us know.
Just brag on.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'm not too used to that, but I'll try. I'll give this a shot. So Choo-Choo Charles, it's a game that I've been working on for about 9 months now. I announced it back in October 1st of 2021. And the trailer took off immediately, getting re-uploaded all over the place. Basically a full media press run in a single day. So within a couple weeks, the game built up over 100,000 wish lists. And it's currently now sitting at 370,000, number 40th most wish listed game on Steam. Pretty proud of that.
Yeah,
proud of that.
You're right up there with Danny.
He's a ways ahead.
I think he's number one, but you're getting there.
Very slowly, but in any case, so let's see here. Yeah, so the game just went pretty viral, and it's got like close to 200-ish million views around the internet, people re-uploading stuff, and also from my devlogs. About a month after announcing the game, I decided, you know what, this would be a good opportunity to kind of take my YouTube channel to the next level, maybe. So started doing devlogs, and those started taking off pretty quick. So those are getting like 1-2 million views per video. I think I've done like 9 or 10 videos about Choo-Choo Charles.
Yeah.
So those have been doing great. YouTube channel is up at 280,000 subscribers. Recently was in Summer Game Festival, Day of the Devs. That was cool. I don't know. That's the general rundown, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, to give some context here, guys, basically Gavin and I have the same amount of subscribers, but Gavin's views are like astronomical compared to my views. And it matters. I mean, what we're talking about here is basically Gavin's ability to secure wish lists, which means essentially it's like kind of like an insurance policy that when he launches his game, he knows without a shadow of a doubt it's going to do well. I mean, am I correct there, Gavin?
Yeah, I would say so.
In terms of sales numbers, right? Like you're gonna sell this thing. Now, if it's actually a good game or not, we'll figure that out once it's launched.
Fingers crossed.
And is that a fear that you have, that you're not gonna meet the expectations?
It's been a fear kind of off and on, but ultimately I can't know for certain. How well it'll be received. I think it'll be good though, because I mean, like all my previous games, my free games, my Beautiful Paper Smile, all those, they've all got really good reviews. My camera resolution decided to die.
You're fine there. That looks good.
But yes, I mean my track record has been pretty good, so I'm hoping that I can keep that up.
Well, let's talk about your track record, because I know, like for me, I've released plenty of crappy games. Edmund McMillan, who I'm a big fan of, who released Super Meat Boy, he's like the OG indie game developer. He had, like, if you go to his Wikipedia page, it's like insane how many crappy games he released prior to launching Super Meat Boy and Binding of Isaac. Do you consider, this is a rule that I've created for my audience, which is you should release at least one crappy game before you actually focus on your dream game. Do you feel like you agree with that? Is that true for you?
Well, I've definitely put out a lot of crappy games. I will say the dream game concept, like your dream game probably sucks. Just straight up. You probably shouldn't even make your dream game because it's probably not marketable. But yeah, I mean, you're gonna make games that are just objectively bad, that are poorly designed, poorly written, have crappy art. I think I've published 8 games at this point, and obviously I've started plenty of projects that I never finished. So, yeah, I mean, just don't be afraid if your first game sucks, because that's natural.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
natural.
did you ever?
The first game doesn't need to be a hit,
Did you ever release games that got bad reviews, people didn't really like, or have you always sort of? This is a really important question, because you said you're 20 years old, right?
Yeah.
You're 20 years old. Have you ever experienced? We can cut this out if you want, but have you ever experienced embarrassment, or has life just always gone your way in terms of?
No,
you just seem like artistically, you seem like you were born to do this, and it seems like you're just a natural. Has that always been the case, or did you get bad reviews? Did you experience failure?
Yeah, for sure. The first game I published was called Sumo Skies on iOS, and it didn't even get any reviews. Nobody even played it.
Yeah,
that was kind of a letdown. And then I published a couple other mobile games, and my first couple games on Steam were both awful. I had one called Behind These Eyes. It was a horror game. It was my first horror game that I published, and it was awful. It was awful. It was just generally bad in every way. It's basically sort of like an asset flip type of horror game. Poorly designed, awful story, just bad. And it got, it made like $1,000, but everybody hated it. So, not the biggest success. After that, I kind of started getting a better feel for, design and art direction and all that kind of stuff. I started learning a bit more about, like, learning from that feedback, because without the awful reviews and stuff, I just dropped a pen. Without the awful reviews and stuff, I wouldn't have learned, like, okay, this is the stuff that people really hate. This is really setting people off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so with that information, obviously, I was able to start learning a lot more about.
Okay, but you're
design
releasing these
and
things
stuff.
at like 16 years old, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. So,
15,
you know, it's a
16.
weird thing because I don't know. I'm trying to remember because I'm 31. So it's not like I'm that much older than you, but I have 11 years of more life than you. And when I think back of being a teenager, I didn't have the mental capacity to say, hey, this is bad, this is good, like, and then fix those problems. I was so in my head and I was kind of cocky. And so were you able when you were 16? I mean, you were in high school. Were you able to focus and think like a businessman about here's how you make a good game. Here's what was wrong with the games that I released.
Well, I mean, obviously early on, like, I started when I was 12, and obviously, like, like, I thought that everything that I made was great, like, really, really early on. I just did. I don't know
Yeah.
why. I thought that I was making genius games, but I wasn't because people hated them. So later on, after I'd published a few and I was kind of humbled, and I realized, okay, this is the stuff that's going wrong. Around 16, when I started working on My Beautiful Paper Smile, that is when I really did start trying to think of it as a business, because I was in high school at that point, and I knew that I wanted to try and make games full time as a living. I didn't want to go to college. I didn't even want to be in high school. So I was trying to figure out how I could make successful games. How could I make a hit? And so that's when I kind of started trying to learn about, marketing and all that stuff, without much success, obviously. But yeah, I was starting to try and think about stuff more objectively and in a more business type sense.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to figure out. I love when I meet super young game developers who are making games like this is like AA, and that's a compliment. We're not trying to aim for AAA here, right? Like that's not the goal.
Yeah, for sure.
But this is AA for sure. And when I meet young people who are making AA style content and they're killing it, they're just marketing geniuses. I love to get an idea of how they got there. Did you have a supportive family, supportive friend network that sort of encouraged you to go this route? How did you find the courage to do all this and put yourself out there like this?
Well, my family wasn't against it. They weren't against me making games. They were generally pretty supportive of all that. I never talked about it with my friends that much. I mean, I'd have them, play my games, test stuff out on occasion, but generally I didn't really talk about it with pretty much anybody.
Yeah.
Just because I felt like nobody really cared. I just loved doing it, and I just wanted to do it so badly. So I didn't really have a problem putting out crappy games. I mean, it kind of sucks getting, a shit on online and stuff. But
yeah, but do you struggle? Is your personality just confident by default? Or do you sometimes wonder, because a lot of what I'm trying to get at here is a lot of you in the audience listening now, your insecurity is keeping you from doing what Gavin has done here, which is just put themselves out there and just go for it. Do you think about the negative comments? Do you think about how people perceive you, or do you just go for it and you don't worry about it?
I don't really worry about it much. The negative comments and stuff, I mean, like, I avoid reading them. I will say TikTok comments are the most degenerate comments on the internet. Well,
this unsurprises me.
It's between TikTok and Reddit.
Of course, I was going to say
so
Reddit is hell on earth.
Reddit, everybody's an expert. I don't know how everybody is such a genius over there.
I think honestly, I just think it's a lot of very, very jealous, dare I say, like neckbeard types who are just not so happy that you're doing well.
Perhaps. I don't know what it is, but in any case, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily confident by default. I just don't want to care. I guess it's not even that I don't care what people think and whatever think, because that's just normal human stuff.
Yep.
I just want to make games so bad. I just want to
Yeah.
make successful hit games. So I don't really care what happens between now and me making hit games. It's like I'm going to do that at some point. Like the comments and stuff like that don't. So it just doesn't really matter in the big scheme of things.
Because what I'm trying to get at here is I've found that people who are wildly successful on YouTube, people who, especially like game devs that release devlogs, people who are wildly successful at that, and they're also wildly successful at the games that they're making, they seem to have what I would call like the PewDiePie attitude, which is like, I'm going to do what I want to do, and you can like it if you want, but I don't really care. And I'm trying to gauge if that's how you are, if that's how your personality, because I'll be honest, that's not my personality. I overanalyze everything. And I care about comments so much that I don't read them. That's the reason I don't really read comments, because I'll go into a tailspin if I read one negative comment. In fact, I was borderline almost quitting my first-person shooter game because of only a few comments. So would you categorize yourself as more of someone who's a little bit more carefree than perhaps me?
I mean, maybe more, I guess. I don't know, because it's, like I overthink stuff a lot. Like when I put out a recent video where me and Bargy, he's another game dev YouTuber, we had a challenge where we had 24 hours to make a horror game, and I was stressing out because that was my first video since kind of blowing up that wasn't about Choo-Choo Charles, and so I was stressed that if it's something different that the audience isn't used to, everybody's gonna hate it and it's gonna fail. So it's like I do overthink stuff, but ultimately, I mean, I put it out. I didn't, I just. So I guess I don't know. Yeah. I don't know where to go with.
I totally know that feeling. So for me, that moment, that sort of crux moment, was when my channel size doubled because of the game I made for PewDiePie. And then I did a video with PewDiePie and got a really big audience from that. And then the next day, after the whole video was done, after the PewDiePie's video was posted, and I had this new audience, I did a live stream where I was working on my next game. And it was this just sense of dread. Like, is my new audience going to care about something not related to PewDiePie? Mm-hmm. And that I remember that feeling distinctly of, essentially, is my audience going to care? And it begs the question.
Did they care though?
What's that?
Did they care?
No. I mean, this is the thing.
Okay.
There were plenty of people who just disappeared. They didn't unsubscribe. The viewership just went down, which is totally normal. I mean, what did I expect? You make a game for PewDiePie, they don't really necessarily care about your next game. They just think it's funny because of the memes. So that's totally fine. But that was a growing experience for me. And it really begs the question, which is, why do we put ourselves out there and make devlogs and make YouTube videos? You mentioned earlier before we started this call that each video you do takes you about 4 days total. I would assume 8, 9, 10-hour days, right?
Maybe not that much.
Really?
I have a hard time editing for long periods of time. So that's like.
So we're like 30 hours of work per video?
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah, so the question is, and this is more of a marketing discussion, so this is my segue into this. It is difficult, it's challenging, it's emotionally challenging, it's taxing physically to make devlogs. What is the goal of a devlog? And again, this is more of an entrepreneurship channel, so we can talk about metrics and stuff. But what's the goal of a devlog? Why spend the time to do it?
So for me, early on, and it's changed over the course of development, just all the marketing strategies and stuff in general. But early on, I saw the devlogs because I've been doing YouTube for like 3 years at this point, and I hit a point where I just kind of I screwed over my channel by having sort of a shift in audience. Originally, I was doing Unreal Engine tutorials, and then I started trying to do like devlogs, and it wasn't going well because the audience was mismatched, and that was killing the metrics. And so the algorithm hated my stuff. So with Choo-Choo Charles blowing up, I saw it early on as an opportunity just to grow my channel and have a way to fund the development of the game. Because early on, I didn't actually know how I was going to pay for the development of the game. So I saw it as a good opportunity to, start getting ad revenue, sponsorships, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I was just trying to make interesting content about the game so that I could get wish lists, because after like the initial viral spike wore off, obviously things were going to start settling down. So I didn't want the game to just completely fall off, everyone's radar after that.
Yeah.
So it was like partially just like background marketing and partially a potential income method. So the goal was just to follow the YouTube strats and just pull views, basically.
For the purpose of securing wish lists. Would you say wish lists is the primary goal? The call to action for your videos is wish lists.
It is, yeah. Yeah, I mean, wish lists I think they're kind of only important to a certain point, which is why I've kind of been slowing down on the devlogs and stuff and just been putting more time into the development of the game. I think for most people, that's probably not a point you'll get to very soon.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, the call to action in the videos is wish list. Wish list the game, get hyped about it.
Right. So let me ask you this: if you weren't getting wish lists and you weren't necessarily getting views, would you purely from a purist perspective still make vlogs, or would you say this isn't worth my time?
I mean, if it's not worth my time, it's not worth my time. If I mean, basically, I would need to be getting either money to pay for the development, or I'd need to be getting wish lists. Like, it would need to be meaningful in some way, because it takes time to put that stuff together.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I'd need to be seeing that it's well worth my time. Otherwise, I'd be putting that time into something else.
Okay. So let's transition. I really wanted to quickly transition to, okay, well then let's talk about how you do your devlogs, the strategy. But let's save that towards the end of this conversation, because I think my audience right now, especially those of you watching, and if you're not watching, just Google Choo-Choo Charles and you'll see what this game looks like. For those of you who are listening to audio only. What I'm looking at, for those of you who are listening, is it's stylized, but it looks like AA. It's first person exploration, but the textures have a very sketched, hand-drawn look. So I'm going to give you the stage here. Tell us how this thing is made. Assets, texturing, coloring, post-processing, software you use, code, all that stuff.
Yeah, okay, so I'm using Unreal Engine 4 as the basis of everything. Basically, where to start? I guess I'll just hop into assets, because that's a cool one. I like using assets. I use assets for any object that doesn't need to be custom, like trees, rocks, water, water shaders, random fish. Like there's a lot of random generic objects in a game that you don't need to make yourself. So I download a lot of asset packs for stuff like that. And that speeds up development a lot.
You reskin them though, right?
Yes. Yeah. So that's kind of the second part of the process. So the second part of the process is making everything fit, because kind of the typical issue with assets is that you get a bunch of assets from a bunch of different packs, you throw them all together, and it just, stuff looks out of place. So what I do is I reskin the color texture, the diffuse textures, with a sketch. I've been playing around with this tablet pen thing here.
Cool. Is it a Wacom pen tablet? Intuos?
It's Huion or something.
Oh, interesting.
It's nothing crazy. It's not one with a screen. It's just like the tablet itself.
But you're not like doing it on an iPad or anything, just for clarity to the audience. You're just, it's in Photoshop. No. Do you have to unwrap the models again before you?
No. So it's
Okay.
really simple. So in Unreal Engine, what I do is, so I download an asset pack, I put it into the project, I'll construct whatever environment I need these assets for,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll go into the assets, and in Unreal you can export any like textures or sound files or whatever. So I'll export the diffuse textures, and then I bring that into GIMP. I use GIMP instead of Photoshop.
Okay.
And from there, I use the smudge tool with the with like sort of like a pencil texture brush, and then I just click on a color, a point in the texture, and I just scribble that color around. Take the next area, scribble that color around, just to give it all a nice sketched look. And then I'll export that, put it back into the engine, and then poof, it's basically done. Sometimes, depending on the asset, to make it all fit, and also just to optimize stuff, I'll like turn off maybe like the specular map or the roughness map or something, because sometimes stuff is like too high quality. So I'll just like bring the quality down so that it all just
I was gonna
feels
say, it looks like a lot
in
of your
place.
stuff is just a simplistic, like, let me take my dog outside. I think he needs to pee. Hold on one sec. Oh.
Dog time.
So like, it looks like you're not using a ton of. Well, I'm seeing a lot of normal maps right now. There were sometimes in the game everything looks really flat, like in a good way. Is everything utilizing a normal map? And for my audience, a normal map is what's going to add a lot of depth to your texture, in correlation to the lighting. Are you is there a rule in your head that says we always use normal maps, we always use occlusion maps, or sometimes you don't and sometimes you do?
Normal maps are pretty common across pretty much all the materials. Yeah, I see those, and I use those in pretty much everything. I'll turn off like specular and roughness a lot though. So there are a lot of materials that are a bit more flat.
Right.
Yeah.
Does this method concern you as it relates to porting and optimization?
How do you mean?
Well, if you were to port this to Nintendo Switch, it would require a lot of tools.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, no.
You're not even thinking about it.
It's not really. No, I mean, as it's an open world kind of, and obviously, like, I'm sure it could be ported to lower end stuff. Like, I want to do console ports and stuff, but I don't know. I'm just focusing on PC right now. I'm not worrying too much about the porting stuff. I'm gonna do that after the PC launch, anyways.
Well, you don't need any of my advice, but what I would say is, you're gonna make enough money to hire a porting studio to do all of this. Everything.
Yeah, that's kind of the plan.
Yeah, you're gonna be just fine. I can imagine porting this would probably cost $100,000 minimum. But that's standard with like publishers. The publishers I talk to, that's just normal. It's like what they do. It's like, yeah, it's gonna be $100,000. We're gonna find a porting studio to handle all this. And guys, that's my plan. Is for my next game, Father, which actually looks similar to this in a lot of ways in terms of mood. And I want to talk about mood in a second. For me, the plan is just like Gavin, make it for Steam. Basically gaming PCs, that's the goal, that's the market, and then worry about the port later, hand it off. A lot of you have asked me, Thomas, how do you do console porting? And my answer is I don't do it. And there's so many things related to obviously optimization, but also just working with their SDK and making sure you're following all the rules that, for example, Nintendo has, and all the rules Microsoft is especially particular about what they require. So yeah, handing that off to a porting studio is probably going to be your best bet for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's transition to mood here. you're doing this thing. Right now I'm looking at this scaffolding. It's really high up in the air. It's super foggy. I'm assuming you're using volumetric lighting and volumetric fog. Is that correct? You're using some sort of volumetric. Yeah. Okay.
Volumetrics are
crucial.
Chef's kiss. I love those.
Yes.
I love that stuff.
And that's the sad thing is I think that once you go to Switch, you're gonna have to turn it off. That's my opinion. We'll see.
It'll be sad.
Unless Unreal is just really it's optimized. I don't know.
No, the volumetrics in Unreal are it's a significant performance hit.
Yeah. And your game will do fine without them. I mean, I can imagine.
I'll figure out a way to make it. It'll be decent enough.
But you're doing this thing with. I'm looking at the scaffolding scene. You're doing the exact same thing that I am obsessed with, and that is gloomy clouds in the distance, almost like everything's storming around you, but there's bright sun hitting directly down onto your set. It's definitely got like a Half-Life vibe to it. What is, because I've looked at some of your other games. I believe is your other game playing that 2D game? There's a 2D game that plays in this video. It's like, or is that part of this game? This black and white 2D.
There's the black and white 2D is probably My Beautiful Paper Smile.
Okay.
That would be my most recent commercial game.
Okay, so mood-wise, your portfolio is very similar to mine, which is it's always dark. It's always dark and moody. So my question is, why? Yeah. Why are you that way? What about your personality? What drives you to continually make these really dark games?
I don't know. It's just cool. It's just interesting. I don't know. I haven't seen a therapist. I haven't looked deep into these deep parts of my mind. I have no clue. It just looks cool.
Does it bring you comfort?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I have no See,
idea. I think about all this stuff. I lay awake at night and I'm like, why do I need everything to be foggy? Like in all of my games, everything is always foggy, and I don't know why. It looks cool. It feels good. It brings me comfort for sure. Anytime there's storm clouds on the horizon, in real life, I feel comfortable. So how are you achieving this gloomy look? Is it primarily post-processing? And by the way, for my audience who doesn't know, post-processing is like an Instagram filter. It's basically a filter applied after each frame is rendered. A filter will be applied, and it's all code. So your camera is adding all this effect. Are you utilizing a lot of post-processing for your games?
There's not a lot. I do a couple basic. Obviously, ambient occlusion is beautiful.
Can you explain what ambient occlusion is for those of us who don't know?
Yeah, so ambient occlusion, basically if you've got, like let's say you're in a room and there's a spot where like two walls match up, along the very corner of the wall, it's going to be darker. So it's going to be shaded in and it's going to get lighter as it goes out. So it's just like sort of an edge shadow.
Yeah, and this is as opposed to baked ambient occlusion. Baked ambient occlusion would be baked into the texture. You can either do this in the actual 3D modeling software or painting software like Substance, which is now owned by Adobe, or you can bake it in the actual software, the actual game engine like Unreal or Unity. The problem with that is it takes forever to bake, and oftentimes you don't want something to be static. The only way to bake something is it has to be static. So from what I can gather, are you doing baked lighting with its own ambient occlusion and then post-processing?
Yeah, since it's open world, there's stuff popping in and out all the time. Everything's dynamic.
Okay. So so ambient occlusion is the primary one.
Yeah. So,
what other ones are you using?
For post-processing, I think it's mostly just ambient occlusion. There might be a slight vignette. Not a lot in the post-processing side though. Mostly it's for the mood of the game, it's all kind of in the lighting and the fog.
Mm-hmm.
So for that stuff, it's like I just have basically a nice directional light with a nice steep, or not steep, I guess it'd be a shallow angle So you get really nice long shadows,
And that achieves a
long
twilight look.
god rays and stuff. Yeah. So I've got a lot of that going on. Obviously, a fairly dense volumetric fog just to add more mood, and it just ties stuff together better. Without it, everything looks extra flat. Helps provide more depth. It's just beautiful all around. Every game needs volumetric fog. It's just
I'll be honest, man. I've intentionally avoided it because because Nintendo Switch is our goal. I'm just like, man, like I don't know if I even want to deal. I don't know if I can handle getting attached to volumetric fog and then seeing it removed for Switch. So we'll see.
Might be rough, but yeah. In any case, though, so the volumetric fog is a big part of the mood in Choo-Choo Charles. I mean, all my games really. Yeah. And then also just a generally higher ambient light level. I don't know how high the ambient light level is in like My Beautiful Paper Smile. It might be a little darker, but like Choo-Choo Charles, there's no black shadows. There's nothing is completely dark. You just bring up the ambient light level so it all looks just more realistic. Just kind of as a cheap way to kind of get around like baked bounce lighting and stuff like that.
Okay.
So that's about it, though. It's a generally simple setup, and then it's just kind of a matter of tweaking the values until everything feels just kind of a little bit dark, a little bit desolate. So it feels kind of abandoned, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I think what a lot of people are probably thinking right now is, why is it that Gavin can do this and I can't? Why? Why are you able to do... I'm looking at all the interactivity here. This thing is big. It's a big game. And I tell my team, we're not doing this. I say that to my team all the time. I say, because of budget constraints, we are not doing something like this. And so my question is, and you'll notice that I'm trying to dig into your personality and your genetics to figure out, why is it that Gavin can do this? Why? What are you doing differently than most devs?
Right. The game, all that you see is all that there is. There's no complicated stuff behind, like, all the mechanics are very simple. They really are.
Can you explain them really quick? Just a brief rundown of the loop.
So basically, the way it works is So the goal of the game is to kill the evil spider train Charles. Charles roams around an open world map, and so your goal is you take your old train and you drive around completing missions for NPCs. You can loot different locations to get scraps, which are kind of like the in-game currency, I suppose. And then you use those scraps to upgrade the train, get beefier, get stronger, so you can do more damage. You can go around and get different weapons that you can put on your train. And then as you get stronger and more fit to fight Charles, once you complete, the different like sort of campaign missions, I guess, you can then summon Charles to a final fight and hopefully kill him if you're strong enough. If not, then you can go around and complete more missions, gather more scraps, upgrade your train more, and then eventually hopefully win the game.
So lots of replayability here. It kind of almost feels sandboxy.
Sort of a little bit. That's kind of the goal. That's a huge thing with the marketing side of it, is just more implied player agency, more player choice, because otherwise I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent, but otherwise people won't actually play it themselves, so
that they'll just watch the streamer play it and that's it.
Right. Yeah. So giving player agency and just having some sandbox elements and stuff like that is huge, big deal. So
that was an answer to my question of one of your reasons why you're able to do this.
So why can I?
Yeah,
so
you're keeping it simple.
Are simple. So like I got a fully upgradable train that you can drive around the island. Okay, well the upgrades, there's 3 upgrades. You can upgrade the damage, the armor and the train speed. So you click on a button in a menu, and then it ups the speed multiplier by a certain percentage. Like it's simple stuff from a coding perspective, and then I can just polish up those aspects really well, so it's actually decent. Like I could have said, okay, there's a fully upgradable train, and there's a full skill tree, and there's all these different routes you can take it, but that's obviously way more complicated. From a marketing perspective, or from a player perspective, saying there's a fully upgradable train with, just like some simple stat upgrades versus there's a fully upgradable train with a skill tree, they're both fairly similar in the amount of impact they have when somebody hears about it. So you can get away with a lot less with pretty simple mechanics if it's still got that interesting factor to it, I suppose.
Okay.
So
did you make a game design document for this, or is it all just in your head?
Yeah, no, I've got a document. I've a lot of documents for it. I kind of, yeah, I mean, I spent a couple weeks planning out, writing everything out before I started working on it.
Good. So
yeah.
I'm kind of relieved by that, because I've been on a kick lately of game design documents are everything, and I've been telling my team that. I've been telling my audience that, and it's good to, I'm encouraged, because I didn't used to use them. I used to just go with the flow, which is a terrible idea. It makes things just more expensive in the long run. So you've got this GDD, and it's super simple. The core game loop is super simple.
Mm-hmm.
You're using assets. You're quickly repainting the assets to match the style of your game. And let's talk really quick about the coding. Are you coding using Blueprint? And Blueprint, for those of you who don't know, Blueprint is Unreal's sort of visual code editor. So you don't necessarily have to know code to use it.
Yes, yeah. So it's all in Blueprint. Pretty much everything I'm coding myself. I can't do code assets. I've got like a couple plugins that I use for some simple things like save game management stuff. Makes that a little bit easier. But yeah, so I'm programming everything in Blueprint.
Okay. So I'm trying to figure this out here, because I want my audience to get an idea of how talented they need to be. And like how much talent plays into this. And I'll be blunt, I think that there's the talent factor, which is 60-70% of why you're able to do what you do. That 30% is the simplicity of it and the assets. Were you always considered a very talented person growing up?
I suppose maybe a little bit when it comes to art type stuff.
Yeah.
I've always been pretty good with sketching. Before getting into games, I would do like, fairly realistic sketches of stuff. So I suppose a little bit in that regard. I guess I kind of, I think if I had one thing that's like making stuff easier, it's just that like I can look at things somewhat objectively, perhaps more objectively, so I can see when something's wrong. So
You're
like
not
if you always know when something is wrong, it's like I can kind of get a little bit of an outside lens and just keep on iterating on stuff, because like the first time I do something, it usually sucks. So it's just, but as long as I know that it sucks, I can change it until eventually it just kind of works.
Okay. So just to break down really quick, for those of you who are listening right now and you want to do what Gavin is doing, start with a GDD, a game design document, get your core game loop down like to a T, and utilize assets, flip those assets in Photoshop or GIMP, which GIMP is the free Photoshop alternative, and then utilize either Unreal or Unity, and as much visual scripting as is necessary for those of you who don't want to learn to code from scratch. I think that's the general gist of it.
Yeah, so something along those lines. Also, putting a huge, at least, I mean, because like obviously, like if you do all that stuff,
Yeah.
you can make an objectively good game. Not necessarily a marketable game. That's
What makes it marketable?
that's always just if okay, like with Choo-Choo Charles, for example, it's a lot of little things just in the inherent just design of the game. First thing, there's a spider train.
That's huge,
There's a spider.
man.
That's the spider train is a thumbnail. The
Yep.
spider train is a title. That is an attention grabbing device specifically put there for that purpose. The light levels of the game are just generally higher than in other horror games, so you can actually see stuff. Like when you see a screenshot of most horror games, only maybe 20% of the screen is even visible, because you just got like this tiny little flashlight, so you're wasting so much like real estate on somebody's Twitter feed or something. So it's like having full art across a whole screenshot, making use of screen real estate, stuff like that, making use of colors that really pop. Like I put time into early on into making the colors of like Charles and the sky and the grass, like even like you got sort of the muted sky and muted grass colors that are like kind of the blue and green that sort of complement each other, and then you've got like this bright red train, or like the bright yellow player train, that really pop. And there's a lot of little things like that, and then also just how visual the gameplay is. Like if you watch the first 15 seconds of the trailer, you can grasp pretty much the entire core of the game, completely visually. And so it's stuff like that that makes it actually marketable. And that was a big focus right from the get-go.
So to break that down, this is me I'm learning right now, man. Like I'm learning a lot from you. You're totally right when it comes to screenshots and animated GIFs and videos with horror games. What you're saying is there needs to be a full frame of color and contrast and light. Despite the fact that it is still moody, we want to be able to see a lot and get a lot of depth in a single screenshot for it to have virality on social media.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely an aspect of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's take what you were saying. I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Sure.
Let's do a little audit of my game, and I want you to act as my counsel. Okay. Using your principle of specifically the creepy spider train, I would call that your visual hook, right? It's not necessarily it is a mechanical hook as well, but you could have a monster that isn't Thomas the Train, but a spider, right? So when it comes to,
I could.
But it wouldn't be marketable, right?
Right. Yeah. There's with Choo-Choo Charles, there's a very strong element of irony and familiarity.
I love you. Well, you're trend jacking in a way, which
somewhat,
is trend jacking, meaning you're taking a common trend and you're flipping in a way. So we're looking. I'm going to scrub over to find Charles here. There he is. Yep. Okay. There's Charles. I've got him pulled up on screen. That right there, everybody, and for those of you who are listening, we're looking at Thomas the Train, but he's horrifying and he's a spider. That right there is, I guess we can call it a visual hook. And I can't think of a better visual hook. Other visual hooks include something like playing as a fox. Apparently that's a huge deal. There's David Whaley, my buddy David Whaley, made a game called The First Tree. He was like one of the first fox games. And the simple fact that you're playing as a fox is enough of a visual hook for people for the clip to go viral. So something let's do the audit now of my game Father. Okay. Currently Father, it's set in the Garden of Eden, but it's like it's the decaying modern version of the Garden of Eden. Okay. So you stumble upon this Garden of Eden and it's creepy and it's weird and there's plants everywhere. And there's a tower scaling up into the clouds. And the goal is to scale the tower to get to the top. Using your logic, though, of creating a visual hook, what if instead, tell me your thoughts here, What if instead of it being just a regular tower, what if it was the tree of knowledge of good and evil? It was a giant tree going into the sky. So you're flipping.
That's definitely more interesting.
Right. So your theory is take the things that are core visually to your game and create something that is stickier in the visual marketing.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of, it's part of it. I mean, because ultimately, like the goal is, you know, with your screenshots or whatever. Because like there's the inherent design of a game, if it's going to go viral and if it's going to actually have people play, because a game can go viral but not actually sell any copies. You need two key elements, which is you need to be able to effectively get people's attention, and then you need to be able to convert that attention into like genuine interest. So you know, obviously, you know, the interesting graphics and stuff, they'll only go so far. But that is, yeah, it's definitely an important part. It's the first, that's your thumbnail and title, you know?
Right.
So
if you were me and you had this concept of climbing a tower into the sky and the game is based on the Garden of Eden, it would make more sense to you to make that tower pivotal in the marketing efforts to show, because right now it's just a castle. Instead, we turn it into a castle that looks like a tree. And it's like, that is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That is the tree of life. That kind of thing. Do you think that's a good approach? You can say no. I'm genuinely curious
approach here. I don't think it's that strong.
Okay.
Ultimately, I think, because like, you know, people have seen castles before, people have seen trees before.
Yeah.
So it's like the concept of it being, you know, the tree from the Garden of Eden is like a little bit like, it's interesting, but you have to explain that, otherwise it's just a tree.
Yeah. But this, they could see it and they know exactly that that's Thomas the Train, but a spider.
Right. Yeah. It's
got it. Man, that is
so
such
I don't know.
a good.
If you had a giant tower, yeah, I mean, you could throw any kind of crazy object on there, and people probably wouldn't question. I mean, obviously, you got some themes, obviously, to
Yes,
to stay true to, but yeah, I mean, if having something that is like a key part of the marketing, something that you can always go back to.
Mm-hmm. So what about this?
Would be good.
This is more, I love this because this is like live brainstorming. What about, and I just want to capitalize on your knowledge while I have you.
Sure.
What if the weapons themselves weren't just standard like steampunk weapons, but what, like, here's just a twist. What if they were animals? Is that kind of a creepy looking insectoid animal as your weapon? Is that kind of going more towards your thought process?
A bit, yeah, because I've seen stuff like that. I mean, if you look at like Scorn, they have a similar type of a concept going on with like the organic weapons and everything, for that matter. So stuff like that has proven itself to work. Yeah, I mean that would be a lot better, because people have seen a million FPS games.
Yep.
You know, we've all seen the hands holding the gun.
Yep.
So like, yeah, bringing some interesting stuff into there would definitely be good.
Okay. So ultimately, you know, it's just really important to stand out. Like, it's really important to stand out.
Yeah.
And man, you know, like, what a brilliant move on your part to make this about Thomas the Train. I mean, that's the core of it all.
Well, it's about Charles. It's
I
not
know,
about
but it's clearly Thomas the Train as a spider, right? I mean, that was the initial
Charles.
idea.
It's Charles, obviously.
Are you worried about that IP?
Geez.
Are you worried about that IP?
I don't think I'm gonna get sued by Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yeah.
If I did,
I
that'd be
hope
pretty
not. No,
funny.
I don't think you will.
But no, I don't think. I mean, because I mean, there's it's Charles. You know, it's not Thomas the Tank Engine. Thomas the Tank Engine never had spider legs, so it's like, you know,
Yeah.
I'm clear legally speaking.
Oh man, there's so many things we can hijack off of what you're doing here. For example, maybe this should be your sequel. I'm not recommending anybody steal this idea, but like if your enemies looked a lot like Teletubbies, it's kind of that kind of mentality, right? It's like taking something that's in people's minds and saying the same is true with Five Nights at Freddy's, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The same sort of thing, Chuck E. Cheese, but horror. And that is such a brilliant move. And I don't see it going wrong. I think if people know of something popular that's already around, and they can twist it to work within within their game loop, then it's a no-brainer to just do it, because it's going to make your game more marketable. Yeah, I love that. So let's transition really quick to devlogs now.
Sure.
This is, I would say this is core to your marketing strategy. This is core. I can imagine the game would be very successful without your devlogs, but when you're pulling 400,000 views per video, it is now officially core to your marketing strategy. Can you tell us a little bit about your strategy with your devlogs? Specifically, what makes them so viral other than your game looking amazing?
Yeah, so the main thing is just being a YouTuber. Like, rather than, like, one of the biggest things that people do is they think of marketing in terms of like, I'm marketing an indie game, or like I'm making a YouTube channel about an indie game. But it's like, no, you're making a YouTube channel. It's just a normal YouTube channel. Treat it like normal YouTubers would treat normal YouTube. So that means following the hailed strategy of just really strong title and thumbnail and really strong retention loop. So what that looks like is, let me pull up some of my stuff here.
And that is, from what I've found, that is the core equation. Great thumbnail
basically,
and retention, because you got to follow through on that promise with great content.
Yeah, so like Mr. Beast, he's like, if you don't watch Mr. Beast, you need to, because that is your class on how to do YouTube. For anybody out there watching. So basically, he swears by, and obviously like it works, you need to have as high of a click-through rate as possible. So that's, you know, when somebody sees a thumbnail for your video, what percentage of people that see it will actually click on it, and then the amount of that video that they watch. So if you've got a 10-minute video and people watch 10% of it, that video is not going to go anywhere. If you've got a 10-minute video and people watch 50% of it, now it might go somewhere. If they're watching 70%, 80%, then, you know, you're getting into like viral sort of territory there.
Yeah.
So, you know, getting people to click on a video, kind of like, I mean, first step is getting their attention, getting them to actually focus on your thumbnail. So that's going to be, you know, bright colors, just bright thumbnail, good contrast, interesting things in the thumbnail, interesting object. For me, a spider train is a pretty interesting object to have in a thumbnail. So that helps a lot. So getting people's attention, getting them to actually like focus on it. And then it's a matter of getting people to sort of presenting potential viewers with a question that can only be answered by them clicking and watching the video.
Okay.
So basically, people become invested with something when there's an unanswered question, when there's conflict. People love seeing things resolved. We watch a movie until the end because we want to see everybody live happily ever after. We watch a Mr. Beast video till the end because we want to see who won the $1 million, right? So it's all about constantly creating conflict that people need to watch, through your video to see resolved.
Now, what's going to stop them from just going to the end? Let's say you present the problem in the thumbnail. You present the problem at the beginning of the video with like a tease. What's to stop them from going to the end?
Yes. So the way that works is you have your primary conflict. So right in the beginning, first 2 seconds of your video, you say, this is the problem. So like basically like, this is the interesting thing. So in one of my videos, 24 hours to make the scariest game, I said, I have 24 hours to make the scariest horror game. So boom, that's the most general concept. So at the end, people are assuming, okay, well, at the end, I'll see what the game is. But from there, you have to introduce many smaller conflicts throughout the video. So you've got a bunch of like 30-second conflicts. So like, let's say in the beginning, I'm like, okay, I don't know where to start making this horror game. I need to come up with an idea for it. And then people are like, oh, I wonder what the idea is going to be. And so then I spend some time, making some jokes, sketching some pictures and some designs for the game. And then after 30, 40 seconds, okay, this is the design. And then people get to see kind of the payoff of that. And then immediately after that, without waiting, without, toying around or anything, it's just go into another conflict. Okay, now I need to figure out how to make this environment. And then it's like, okay, now I got to go and look around for some assets and like, oh, maybe this will work. Oh, I got to switch this around and this around. Hey, and now it works. But now I need to. So there's a constant loop of, there's something that's unresolved,
Gotcha.
Something that you're interested in seeing become complete.
Can you explain that in the context of a devlog as opposed to a challenge video?
Yeah.
So firstly, before you do that, I want to get clarity.
Sure.
Is your primary focus devlogs right now? Because I'm looking at your channel and you've got a ton of devlogs for this game, and they're all doing great. So they're not really challenge videos, right?
No. So for devlogs, I mean, on my channel, I guess obviously I do have more devlogs and other stuff, but like for a devlog, it's maybe even simpler. So for a devlog, we'll take programming a 666 IQ monster for my game. This is I think it's my most viewed devlog. So in the first few seconds, I say, I need to program a new AI for my game because right now it's completely broken. It doesn't work. It's awful. Only problem is I have no idea how to make AI. I've never made AI before. So we've already got the general concept of the video.
Yeah.
And then further, we've got a conflict. We're like, well, how's he going to do this? He doesn't know what he's doing. And so from there, it's like, okay, well, now I'm going to start looking for tutorials. I'm going to start trying stuff out. And oh no, wow, look at this funny bug I found. And then, maybe I make a little bit of progress and I can show that off. But wait, now I'm having some more bugs. There's more issues.
Gotcha.
There's some unexpected stuff that's come up during development. And now I got to learn how to fix this. And so it's just constantly finding conflict in anything, or just finding questions that can be, or just anything that can be posed as conflict.
Okay. So does that conflict dictate, does the thumbnail dictate what you decide to work on? Or do you just work and then you think of some conflict you had while you were working in the last month and then make a devlog about that?
So this is where the devlog format falls apart, because not every part of developing a game is interesting. Not
Yeah.
every part of a game is devlog worthy. You know, programming an AI, like that sounds kind of interesting. But fixing bugs for 2 months is not very interesting. So kind of early on, when I decided, you know what, I think doing devlogs would probably be a good move. I kind of listed out all the different parts of development that I was anticipating would make interesting videos. So like, you know, 6-7 months out, like, okay, I'm going to be doing an AI. I'm going to be adding voice acting. I'm going to be adding new weapons. So, and then when I would get to those stages in development, I would make sure to record extra stuff, and just kind of consciously be more aware of like, this is probably going to become a video. So from okay, like the stage that I'm in of development now and have been for like the past, I don't know, 3 months is not devlog worthy. Like it's all just a lot of stuff that would be like heavy spoilers or just really boring to talk about. Just like, oh, I built another location. Like there's not really anything problematic. It's just doing a bunch of random little things.
Yep.
It's like, oh, I added some wave sound effects around the island. Oh boy. You know, so I guess kind of just sort of, I don't remember what the initial question was.
My struggle here is I'm like, how do you keep creating content? Like,
I don't.
So you'll just stop and take a break.
Yeah. So my last real devlog was 5 months ago.
Okay.
And then I did a Q&A video after that because I didn't have anything to make content about. And then I did a challenge video a couple months ago. And then I did sort of a devlog, just sort of summarizing the past 5 months of development.
Yeah.
Basically just saying, or actually only like 40 seconds of it was even summarizing previous development. And then the rest of it was just kind of me laying out like what my goals are for the rest of the development and being like, okay, this is how much is left. Mm-hmm. This is when I think I might be able to release the game.
Did you see a drop in viewership?
Yeah, I did.
What kind of percentage did you see? What kind of drop?
Like a 75% drop. So most of my devlogs all my devlogs are over 1 million, except for there were a couple. I made a couple videos early on that were super low effort just because I just wanted to test the water and just see if anybody was interested. So those ones are both at like 500,000.
So in a way,
but the other ones.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So I was just gonna say like all the devlogs, even the Q&A video that I did, are like between like 1 and 2 million, with a couple over 2 million. And then the latest video, which is just sort of like a brief update on things, just because I wanted to keep people generally updated, just for like community management purposes, I guess. That one's at like 500,000.
Okay.
So
the priority right now is get the game done, and YouTube videos kind of come second because you've already got a huge base in terms of wish lists.
Mm-hmm.
So you're pretty much set there. So now it's just keep people updated and make sure they know it's still there, and then hit the ground running and finish the game.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, yeah, that's basically where all my time is going right now, is just trying to get the game itself done.
So how many views did you get for, let's say, one of your like more your least performing recent videos?
What do you mean?
So you said that you had a 75% drop on some of your recent devlogs, correct?
Well, just on the most recent one.
Okay.
All my videos have been doing fine, except for my latest video that I put out a month ago.
Okay. And so how many views does that one have? Do you know?
Yeah, so that one's at 531,000.
It's still amazing. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's not bad. I like it's still pretty decent. But you know, it's very clearly, you know, less than like the 1 to 2 that the other ones have been getting.
So generally, from what I'm gathering here, it seems like the devlogs that do really well, you kind of treat them as challenge videos.
In a way, I suppose you could say that. Yeah. It's just applying the YouTube format, which in a lot of cases is sort of challenge based in a lot of ways.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, just so the audience is clear, just so you guys know, the reason we're talking about this is because it's not because we're just like YouTube is fun. It's because this converts to sales. At the end of the day, this converts to sales because of wish lists. So it's crucial and it's very, very important to figure out the YouTube algorithm if you're considering making devlogs. I wanted to get really quick an idea of, in your brain, like your schedule. So you mentioned, I think it was before we started this podcast, you said it took you about 4 days to do a devlog. Or now, is that true for challenge videos as well? Or do challenge videos take a lot longer?
So the 24 hours to make the scary, that's like the only challenge video I've actually, I mean, it's the only one that I've done recently. I did some like a year back or something that were a lot simpler. But this one, I think that was maybe like a week to put that one together.
Okay. So generally, though, you're thinking, I'm trying to think of like, if I were to go this route, I'm always thinking of new ways to make content and save time. So a good strategy could be figure out the Mr. Beast method, apply it to a devlog, and spend 4 days of the month making that devlog, and then the goal would be 1 million views, right? Is that kind of the way your schedule was, at least?
Yeah. I mean, early on, I wanted to put out like monthly devlogs. And I mean, it was basically just work on the game until I had enough content and progress recorded that I could actually make an interesting video out of it. So, sometimes it was a little more than a month. Sometimes it was a little less. And then I just take however long to make a video out of it.
Man, that's really encouraging. I think that, I try and advise, my students and people on this channel and people who listen to the podcast to start doing devlogs after you've got a good grasp on how to make games, because you should really be focusing on your game. Yeah. But if you're only spending 4 days out of the month making a devlog, then it seems like a no-brainer, right?
Somewhat. There is kind of, because you need to make a lot of progress on it. Like, I've been working the entire time that I've been doing Choo-Choo Charles, I've been on it full time. Yep. So I've been able to make progress on it faster than somebody who's maybe just like working weekends or working nights or something. So like after a month of work, you might not have nearly, I mean, it might take 3 months to have, like if you're trying to be really specific about getting like just the most interesting, best devlog kind of content. Yeah. So it definitely, it's a difficult format just because of that. So I don't really know what the solution is to that. If I did, I'd probably make more videos. Yeah. But yeah.
So one final question related to devlogs is, how important is having your face on the devlog?
It's probably not that important. It's kind of nice when it comes to editing, because not only do I have B-roll, but I can also throw my face on screen. Yep. Like I've got more footage that I can use, and if I'm talking, I can be using my hands or whatever. I could throw some funny edits on screen or something. So it gives you a little bit more content to play around with when you're editing together a video. But it's I don't think it impacts the viewership much. Yeah. It probably makes you feel like a little bit more of a person slightly, but then again, there's people with incredibly strong fan bases that have never shown their face. So it's you can kind of do whatever, I figure.
Okay. And is it scripted?
I do outlines. So I've got maybe a couple pages where I'll outline based on the footage that I have, the stuff that I accomplished. I'll put in certain points where I'm like, okay, this is an interesting point of conflict, and then this is where I can resolve that conflict and start a new one, and then just kind of outline just sort of a bullet point list of stuff like that. Maybe I've got an idea for a joke or something. So I'll have a general outline. It's not scripted word for word. But yeah.
Okay. And then finally, the final question is, so many questions here. The final one is, how do you get your footage? Do you do that after you write your script or your outline, or are you recording while you're developing your screen? Are you recording your screen?
Yeah, so I record. Do you mean like I guess I don't know if you've watched the devlogs I've done. So like
Yeah.
I record obviously like footage of like the development of the game, like screen capture stuff in engine, bugs that I'm coming across. I'll record that as I'm developing.
Because you'll be thinking this would be really cool for a devlog.
Yeah, like, oh, this is a funny bug. Let me boot up OBS here and capture this.
Got it.
And then afterwards, I've got a folder of all the footage that I have, and then I'll kind of go through that and try and come up with a way that I could structure all these different issues. And sometimes a lot of stuff just gets cut out because it's just like random and it just doesn't fit the flow of the video. And then after I've got a general outline of what I think would work, then I'll, make a actual like, script outline kind of thing and just record me talking to the camera, and use that as sort of like a voiceover sort of thing. And then just slip in all the footage that I have as B-roll on top of that outline.
Sweet. Man, that makes a ton of sense. I've definitely learned a lot. Okay, well let's wrap this up. When's the game coming out? Any ideas? I know that's an annoying question. I get it all the time, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I want to put it out this year, but since I don't know if that's actually going to be possible, I don't know. It might be next year. I don't want it to be next year. I really want it to be this year. So that's what I'm aiming for, but I don't know for sure.
All right. Well, link is in the description, guys, for Steam. Go ahead and wishlist. It's definitely something I'm going to be getting and wishlisting. Is there any other? There's definitely a link to your channel below as well, Gavin. Is there anything else you wanted to leave with the audience before we wrap up?
No, that's it. Bye-bye, folks.
All right, guys, be sure to click those links below to check out all of Gavin's work. Gavin is one of those developers that I'm going to definitely keep my eye on and hopefully keep our friendship going on Discord, because you're one of the few developers that I'm like, I am way behind this guy. Actually, there's a lot of people out there like that. But what I mean is one of the few that I actually get to in contact with and learn from. So you're doing great, dude. I'm really, really happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I've been watching your channel for a very long time. So it's been an honor.
All right. I'm going to run a quick outro, and I'll see you on the other side in Discord.
All right. Sounds good. So I can turn on my webcam?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool.
Get over here. Get down. Hey, thanks for watching. By the way, if you haven't downloaded that free 2D game kit below, click below. It's my treat to you. I used this game kit to make a game for PewDiePie in 14 days, and I actually got to play it with him in front of his audience, which was really cool. This game kit is totally free. It's my treat to you, and you can use it however you want. You can make a commercial game and make $1 million off this game kit. I don't care. Or you could just use it for a hobby project. It's my treat to you. And by the way, if you haven't clicked like, that would mean a ton to me. Hit subscribe. And also, this is important, hit that notification bell. Here's why. If you get notified of when I'm live, you can watch me make my next game and let me know in the chat what you think about the game or any ideas you have. And you might just show up. Your chat might just show up in the next video that I upload. All right. I'll talk to you later. Bye. I love you too.